We were just talking about the Pacers have 6 guys coming in today, and I've seen, I get the emails of the works, and they've just been so many. I don't recall them ever having this many guys come through.
No, as I understand it from talking to a couple people, this is the most that they've had, and with good reason. They've got 5 picks, and they're spread throughout the draft. Obviously, with they've got the 7, the 26, the 29, the 32, and the 55, and they don't intend to make all those, and they're going to, very, very hard try to trade some of them. Hopefully, try to move up either from 7 or from 26. I mean, I think they'd be happy to move several picks to get up somewhere in the 10 to 20 range to look at some people. Or they'd be happy to trade those for current players. They don't intend to bring in 5 rookies, but I mean, I think they're basically operating as though they need to know who they would pick at any pick, because you might end up moving a couple and getting a couple back because someone wants to get rid of them. Because it's just you only want so many rookies on a roster. And I think they're basically just preparing for everything. I mean, I think they're putting a lot of thought into who they might pick at 55, because I don't think they can move that pick. I mean, they can, but once you're all the way down to 55, people are like, well, the guy I want, I'm just going to wait for. I'm just going to get him undrafted. Spend less money for him. The guy's probably not going to make the roster as a first year guy. He's going to have to be basically stick in the G League for a while. In most cases, when you're picking that low, but I think they really care about that pick. And they're looking at a lot of guys toward the end of that draft that they might want. They're obviously giving individual workouts to the players they're looking at. They're looking at for 7. They've brought in, Cam Whitmore, Jarris Walker, and Taylor Hendricks already. 3 guys that they could pick, obviously depending on who's available. And they're going to bring in the Thompson twins soon, presumably this week, and get those 2 in for a workout and get a better sense of what they're all about. But I think it's just a case of you just need to know across the board who you might take. And so I think this will put them at 54, I think, total players that have worked out. And so it's still 10 days between now and draft day. So they've got time, and they're going to, I think, take every opportunity to, see players and get a better sense of who everybody is, where they might fit. And not only for now, but for future, for the future, I think they like doing this to kind of get some bases on some guys, get an idea what they're all about, what they're like as people, so that a couple of years from now, when they're free agents or when they might be available, they know who's good, who's not, but also who fits in their culture.
Yeah, because the Pacers are at a critical point right now. They had a better than expected year last year, which is not to say it was great. It was just nothing was expected, and so which is always that's always an easy way.
They showed expectations. They showed it's not just the wins and losses; it's also
it's how they played.
There's a path. There's a path out of being toward the bottom of the league. They showed capacity to get better. Guys who they have a sort of franchise centerpiece. They have, that they nailed a draft for once. And, there's just positive vibes going, but a legitimate positive trajectory.
Yeah. And Benedict Mathurin turned out to be a great pick last year for them. And now they have the opportunity, unfortunately, not the high spots that they need, that they would like to have had, but with the number, it's making that right choice. And it's a very hard thing to do, period. But then you have to make sure that the dominoes fall in front of you. Right. It's like watching Plinko on Price is Right. The thing has to drop into the right slot, man. And that doesn't always happen, but hopefully it does. But with this many picks, is there any thought of or chance that you think they might trade up to try to trade up?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think they got to kind of kick the tires on everything. I think they're, I'm sure they've made a call already to find out what it would take to move up to 3 or to 2, because I think they'd love to have Brandon Miller, just from the talent perspective. Obviously it comes with the headache of having to explain, or at least having to talk about, the murder in Tuscaloosa. And his, obviously tangential connection to it, obviously is never going to be charged for it, because, it wasn't his gun. But bottom line, they are impressed by the player, and I think basically considering the fit, considering they do need a bigger wing, a 3-4 type, somebody who can shoot and rebound. Brandon Miller obviously fits the bill. I think Kevin Pritchard basically said that he thinks there's a tier. There's Victor Wembanyama all by himself, and then there's Scoot Henderson and Brandon Miller. And I think obviously you're not going to trade up for Scoot just because you already have a lead guard. And so I think they, would you take him if you had the number 3 pick, and just try to see how it works? Yeah, probably. I don't think they'd leave. I think they think he's that good, and I don't think they'd leave him on the table if they had a top 3 pick, but they don't. So it's like, would you move whatever it's going to take to get up to go get Scoot? You wouldn't, but you would take whatever, you would find out what it's going to take to go get Brandon Miller. So the issue there is, does Charlotte want to give him up? It basically, if Charlotte's going to pick 2 and they want him, would they, if they decide that's who they want over Scoot, would they be willing to move that pick? And you would have to think if they really like him, then it's going to be expensive. And so it's a question of what are they willing to give up? And what does Charlotte want? Does Charlotte want anything they have? Because I don't think the picks are going to do it. I don't think that, even if you give them 7, 26, 29, 32, I don't know though that gets you 2 if you really want Brandon Miller. If you don't, then that might do it. Because they do need to kind of refurbish that team a little bit, and they could use multiple picks. But they've got several already, I think. Portland. The other issue is if Portland wants to move, and Portland wants players. Portland wants to be able to build a team that can win now with Damian Lillard. Either it does or it's going to move Lillard. But Lillard's basically said, I want to win now. So they're openly shopping that 3rd pick. And just the question of, can the Pacers give them enough? Because I think they really want to land somebody who's, kind of their second best player, who becomes kind of a real running mate for Damian Lillard. And that tells me that the Pacers would have to move Miles Turner. And to be able to get that pick. Now, I think they could get something else for him. I think it's conceivable that, Miles Turner and the 3 plus Anthony Simons, Miles Turner and the 7 can get you Anthony Simons and the 3. So, that's possible. So Jared's asking, what do you believe it would take to get to 2 from Charlotte? A lot. I guess just the question.
That's a lot.
Just the question of how much does Charlotte want Brandon Miller?
Yeah.
If you think that he's just pretty good, and you're willing to move him, then maybe you could get by with the 7 and Buddy Hield. I think it's really the question of, is he going to cost you Hield or is he going to cost you Turner? And do you want Brandon Miller bad enough to give up Turner? And I wouldn't, if it were me. It's not me. I'm not the one who gets to make that choice.
But you also have to, is Indianapolis a town that, with what Brandon Miller's bringing with him? I mean, I understand that that's some people still have that. They still see a stink on him. I think
the issue. The thing about Brandon Miller to me is, it's not, you got to remember that, he said something at the draft, or the combine, I didn't hear everything he said because it was a big crowd. And I kind of walked away and missed the question, but he said something about not hanging around the same people. We've got to remember, he was driving around a senior on the team.
Yeah.
This wasn't one of his guys. It's not like he's got a group of, scofflaws that he hangs out from whatever town he's from. This was a guy on his team. This was a senior. This was a guy that's supposed to be a veteran. This is a guy that's never supposed to put his superstar freshman in trouble. So you do got to remember that, and it was that senior's gun. Obviously all caveats, nothing's, that guy hasn't been to trial, et cetera. So innocent until proven guilty, whatnot, whatever. But the ultimate accusation is that Brandon Miller brought a guy his gun. Number one, you can never charge him for that. He's given somebody his property, so there's no world in which, certainly not in this country, would in any precinct in the union, is that a crime that you can charge somebody with, so number one, like it's not like there's going to be an anvil that drops sometime, down the road that, suddenly Brandon Miller gets charged and you've got a chance of this guy going to prison. You don't. It is a veteran player that he was hanging around with. That's a guy that as a freshman, you're supposed to be able to trust. So, and it is just generally, like, obviously you're supposed to make your own decisions and discern who you are and are not supposed to be hanging around with. But, this is relatively early in his college career. Like, he's supposed to trust the seniors. And, like, it's kind of like, it's not like hazing or whatever, but like you're driving the senior around to the bar. Like, that's not something that that's supposed to cause you problems. Now, I don't know, like, because he obviously got a text, and like I don't know if he didn't recognize the slang. It might be different slang about he had a bag in the car or whatever. Might not have known it was a gun in the bag. Whatever. Point of the matter, like that's somebody he's supposed to be able to trust. And so, if you're drafting him as a team, you say, all right, do I have guys that he'd get in with? Like, it wasn't Brandon driving this train. Somebody else was. And so it's like, all right, I don't think it's a question of baggage. It's not like John Moran is doing stupid stuff himself.
Boy, he's not stopping.
You're not stopping. So like, this wasn't a case of this guy, like now on the flip side, you're like, all right, like I'd rather have somebody who knows to stay out of that situation. Like again, if he's got a defense for why he was confused, why he didn't realize that what that guy was asking for was a gun, like maybe there's an explanation there. But if there's not, if it's just like, yeah, I just didn't think anything of it. He asked for his gun. It was his gun. So I brought it to him. That obviously evinces some really bad. Okay. I'm sorry. I was frozen there. But ultimately it's a situation of, okay, well, if no one's bringing him guns, then you don't have a problem. Or having him bring them, deliver guns to them, then that's not a problem. But so I don't know. I could see how you could look at it and say, this is not a future concern, but it is a current, we have to explain why we just drafted a guy that had a tangential involvement in a murder. So that it's a weird space. And it's a weird thing you got to explain. And I'm sure, they're going to get eviscerated if whoever takes him is going to get cut up in the media, at least for a couple of days. The question is, are you willing to withstand that? Do you think he's good enough player to suck it up? Bottom line, he's not getting past 3. So if you want him, you got to trade up, period. I don't think, no one's wasting time on him.
Is he that good? I mean,
he's really good.
I know. We watched him at Alabama, but I just didn't realize that be high in the draft.
He's that good, and he also fits the way the game goes. I mean, like having big, long guys who can shoot threes and hit them over and over again is
transition, and do it in transition.
In transition, on the move, like that matters in today's game. It's spread out. You got to be able to create your own shot. You got to be able to hit your own shot. Got to be able to move in transition, move around, move without the ball. He does a lot of things well. He's a good enough defender. He's got length. You keep on the floor for as many minutes as you want. I mean, he's very, very valuable. It's a question of, all right, what all are you willing to give up? It's not it's not a scenario you have reason to believe. I mean, like you could end up being wrong, but you have reason to believe that it's not a scenario that it's a situation you have to explain once, but it's not a situation that's going to like keep creeping up and 5 years from now there's another incident, and 3 years from now there's another incident. Like you don't. I don't think you have to worry about that, but you do have this one, and it's bad. It led to a death of somebody. So like that's kind of what you're dealing with. And like, would I make the move? Probably not. Especially if it cost me Miles Turner, I don't. But other people would. So I want to answer. Jared Wolf's got questions down here. So he asked, what's it going to take to get Charlotte? Again, it depends on how much they need or how much they want. I don't know that picks are going to do it. If they really like Miller, the picks aren't going to do it. If you've determined that he is better than Scoot and you'd rather have him than Scoot, and you really believe that, that's tough. That's going to be tough to move. He asked me, would you trade up for Cam Whitmore? I definitely think about it. Again, it's just a question of what it will cost me. I guess the thing is, if they'll take those last 3 picks off of you, yeah, I would. If I like Whitmore that much more than Walker or Hendricks, just to start, and like not even getting in the Thompson twins, but if I like Whitmore that much more, And it's tough. I mean, like, and I can go back and forth on it, like, but if Detroit's willing to give you the 5 and they are willing to take 26, 29, and 32, or any even just 2 of those, to let you move up to 5, and you really, really like Whitmore, then it's worth it, because you've already got a young enough team as is, and 26, 29, 32 are only going to do so much for you. So, if they'll do that for that, I'd make the move. Would I trade Buddy Hield for him? Probably not. Would I trade maybe a lesser role player? Probably. I'd think about it. If you really like Whitmore and you believe in the upside in Whitmore, you'd think about it. The Thompson twins are fascinating. I think I'd want to see them first. I don't think someone just said, trade up to 4 for, the better one. The issue with the better one is he's a lead guard, Amon's a lead guard. And so he's going to want the ball in his hands. So, like, it's just, I wouldn't, he's not worth it to have to move him off the ball. Osar is, I think, better capable of playing off the ball, is used to playing off the ball because he's used to playing with Amon, and Amon being the guy who has the ball. So I would, I'd be willing to roll the dice of getting Osar later, before I would try to trade up to 4, unless you really like Osar that much and you think you got to get him then.